Hello, is the stream perfectly working? Moment, I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Hello, am I audible now?
Yes, now you're audible.
All right. So right now we have. Okay. Hi everyone, welcome to our YouTube channel. My name is Kushinigi. I'm your host, and today we have a special guest, Dr. Ayush. So before we start, I just want to introduce you. Okay. So Dr. Ayush has achieved an impressive feat in German language, and he has successfully completed his C1 level in German language and directly gave exam to Goethe. So let's just start with your introduction, Dr. Ayush. So tell us about yourself.
Thank you so much for welcoming me here. I feel honestly really honored. And I'll share a bit about myself to begin with. My name is Dr. Ayush, and I'm currently working as a doctor, as an emergency resident in Delhi, in a hospital. And at the same time, I've been learning my language. I'm also currently learning my language, and I'm in my B2.2, and I'm currently studying with Mr. Pranav for the same. And with the same, I started my language journey around December. I started with A1, A2-ish. Like, I actually directly kind of started with A2. And then in 6-7 months, I reached B2.1. But according to I talked to Anuj sir about it, and he mentioned that I had enough Kenntnisse sozusagen, like knowledge with the German language. So I went for the C1 exam for the same. And I successfully cleared my C1 exam on the 31st, which is when I received my result for the same.
So your journey is truly inspiring, and Dr. Ayush, and we are thrilled to have you here today. Share your experiences with us today. So I have my questions with me, and to all our listeners here in the webinar, feel free to ask your questions in the chat box below. So, okay, let's just start from the very beginning. So, what motivated you to, learn German, and okay, what sparked your interest? How did you aim to C1 level directly to Goethe?
So to be honest, I always knew that I would require C1 for my goals, the goals that I want to achieve. I always wanted to move to Europe to study as a doctor, to continue my studies and to become a successful surgeon. And I knew for that I will require C1. So I directly had that goal in mind. So when I started, I kind of knew that's exactly what I was learning towards. So my studies, my methods, my knowledge was kind of geared towards exactly that's the goal that I need to achieve. So everything I'm studying, it's not just to clear 1 to like A2, B1, B2, it's to clear C1. So any knowledge that I got, I knew that it's not going to be something that I can't clear or something that I won't need. I knew like every German is useful. So that's how I started my journey. And I always just had this passion for Europe in general, and Germany was a place that really inspired me. And when you just love something, when you have a passion for something, I think it just gets easier, don't you think?
Definitely. That's fascinating. So, can you tell about how did you manage your time, and what are your resources to learn German, and what uh, what was the most useful thing you have faced, or you find that this is the helpful for you throughout your journey?
That's a good question. So I think Language Pantheon was, I'll be honest, I'll be extremely honest, Language Pantheon was my biggest source. Like, I did not expect that, like, how much Language Pantheon honestly offers us. Um, I was not lucky enough that we had any vocabulary courses at the time when I started. So back then, I just had mostly my classes. And beyond that, I had like the friends that I used to study with, like in my own course. And then we also had like EP classes and everything. So I did all the EPs, and in all the books and all that they offered, like I made sure to like take in every sentence, every word, every grammar topic. I used to just notice everything, and that helped me achieve a lot of things. And beyond that, I think I realized since I'm moving to Germany, it's extremely important that I incorporate my knowledge and incorporate German in my life for the same. So everything I did, literally everything, from something as simple as searching on Google, I used to do it in German, to something as simple as using my handy, beziehungsweise my phone, and to watching YouTube videos, TV shows, everything I did to relax was like, if I just, for example, I come back home and I just want to do something in German, like I want to just relax and watch a series, Netflix movie or something, right? Then I just used to do it in German. And I think I didn't, in particular, go out of my way to get some resources and all that, because I don't think in the long run it helps. So something that's very important to understand is language is just something that we use in our day-to-day life. So in my case, I knew I'll be using my language in two Bereiches, like areas. It will be either in my day-to-day life when I talk to my friends, my family, and just like go out my day, even if something as simple as going out to buy a Coke or something, or just going out, exploring the land. And the second region would be my workplace, because of, for which I require naturally like a Fach level of, like a specialized level of German, to which, of course, that's something I cannot learn until I learn C1. So I knew the first thing that I had to focus on was my daily life. And I made sure to incorporate German in my daily life for the very same. And my biggest resource, to be honest, was, aside from LP naturally, it was a dictionary. Like, I used to talk to myself a lot. I still do it. Anything I do, I just talk to myself in German. Literally anything. Like something as simple as, me trying to rush in the morning, going through my day, anything that I just think about, because I know that these words are going to be useful in daily life. The words that I'm saying to myself are going to be useful, and I know these exactly words are going to be what I'll be using with my other friends or family, whoever I've been talking to, right? Like if I can talk and describe myself to myself, then I can describe myself to my other friends and colleagues, right? So that exactly is what helped me. Like, I know, for example, if I want to be efficient in the morning, and this was an example actually when I began my journey. So I was super like late in the morning, and I just kept telling myself, I need to be efficient, I need to be more efficient. I want to say it in German. But at that moment, I could not think of that word. So I just like went directly on my phone. I went to the dictionary, I looked that word up, and then, saying it to myself a couple times, and then saying it to myself the same thing over and over every morning. It just, it stays with you. So I think that's one of the biggest resources that I have, is honestly myself and my dictionary.
That's impressive, totally impressive. So, what was your experiences like taking the Goethe exam directly after completing C1? So, were there any challenges or surprises you have faced
In what kind of challenges would you mean?
like throughout your journey?
Hmm.
That
Um,
means you have directly gave the Goethe exam, na?
yeah,
So, is there
exactly.
any challenges?
The biggest challenge was that I did not really know how everything worked. Like, in my C1 exam on my expression day, I have never given a expression exam. I did not know how it goes. So we usually have two tiles of the exam, right? Expression. So tile lines and tile swipe. And I didn't know how like the preparation time and everything is. I did my expression time. I prepared for everything, and then suddenly the teacher was that your time for preparation is up. Now you have to go and do your expression. And I did not even read the question of the second tile. Like, I didn't even know what I'm going to be presenting on, talking on. Like, in the second tile, you have to have a discussion about a topic, and I did not even read the question. I did not prepare anything. So not knowing, not having experienced that firsthand, that was the biggest challenge for me. And honestly, it was really scary at that moment. But somehow the irony is my second trial went way easier, the way better, because I did it like, fluently without like making too many like thoughts about it. So I think in the end it ended out well. But things like these were very challenging because when you have never given an exam, you don't know what awaits you, right? So I think to be able to inform yourself beforehand about it, I think that's going to be really helpful, because of which
Okay.
it's absolutely recommended that you give an exam first.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, if B2 is your goal,
Mm.
then you at least give B1 first. So I mean, for me it was just, challenging to take out the time to give an
Mm.
exam. That's why I chose to directly give C1. I did give B1 Schreiben, so that was just, a stroke of luck that I ended up finding a slot randomly. I was just on the site randomly and I saw B1 Schreiben that was open. No other slots were open, so I just booked it right away because, I wanted to see what it's like. So the Schreiben part was already known to me, so I went for that. So I still had a bit of an idea what it was awaiting for me. But some things like expression, I had never done hearing before. I did not know what the speakers sound like, how it's going to be. And I did not know how challenging it would be to be able to concentrate myself on it. You know, the like how, you're just sitting there for 40-50 minutes and you have to have your complete concentration. And since I was giving my C1 exam, like, from the morning you have like 3-4 exams back to back, and then maintaining that same concentration, that's a challenge. And especially when you've never given the exam before. So I think that was my biggest problem. And but still, I don't know, it just turned out well, and here we
Very
are.
nice. So basically, what's next for in your German learning journey, and what goals do you hope to achieve further?
um since I'll be still a part of LP, right? I'll be continuing my B2.2 at the moment, and I'll be continuing to refine what I already know to be able to, for example, I can say that I speak fluently at this point, that if I want to talk to somebody, I can talk to hours on end in German. I was lucky to have German friends who were native, who were born and bred in Germany, and they were kind enough to be a part of my journey and to be able to share their experience with me, so that I could be able to talk with them and be able to practice my German with them. And thanks to that, I can say I'm very fluent in talking, but also being able to incorporate new words in my speech, in my everyday language. I think that's something that I still need to refine. And I think a language is just limitless. There's never pause in learning. So there's always more you can learn, always more you can achieve. So that's exactly what I plan on working on. Beyond that, my plan to stay and move to Germany still stays the same. So that's another thing I'm working towards. In the meantime, I'm also working as a doctor in the hospital, and let's see how things turn out.
Okay, so there's a question from our listener that
Mhm.
how did you manage your studies with your work? Being an emergency doctor must be stressful enough, and still managing to study after a tiring day must be difficult. And how did you manage your studies?
That's another interesting question, because I'll be honest, I'll shed literal tears of blood in the process, because you're working and then you come back home and it's every time it's so extremely tiring. Before working as an emergency resident, I also worked in other branches. For example, I worked in gynecology, that is the branch of women's science, so to say. And in those times, you had a lot of times where you had to just stay at the night, you had to take care of patients and everything. So it gets really tiring. And when you have, classes at night, my classes were around 10:30 to 12:30 or something like that. And, taking the time out to study and, do those things, it was really challenging, because I also had to work alongside doing those things. And there have been countless times where I've not been able to focus.
And there must be
But
night shift as well, na?
exactly.
Hmm.
So, but that's exactly why I made sure to. I mean, as I mentioned, I did not go out of my way to study German. I incorporated German in my daily life. So The fact that, even when I pick up my phone, I see German, staying in touch with the language, that kind of made me keep, grounded, and, keep me in touch with the language, so that I never really forget what I'm working towards. And also the fact that, what I'm studying kind of stays with me. It kind of, when you see those things, your brain kind of keeps making that connection. Or, even hearing German in your background, you know for example, you have something on YouTube playing, or a podcast playing in your ear or something. Even if you're not really listening, your brain kind of processes it in the
The
background, right?
German. Yeah.
Exactly. So when you're like sleeping or something like that, there have been times where I just woke up, and, a word keeps going on in my mind that I've
My head.
never heard of, never seen before. you know I think that was my first month. I woke up, I was sleeping, and then I woke up, and there was this word that kept going on in my head: schaffen,
Then out
schaffen.
of curiosity, we just search the word. What is it exactly
Exactly.
mean? Uh-huh.
And then I find out, okay, that's the word. But, it's just kind of crazy how our brain works, because, something that you've never heard or seen before. At least to me, I've never seen it, but I'm sure my brain must have somewhere, right? Because, like I said, it all works in the background.
Exactly.
So that's what helps. And the management of time gets really hard, because, like you said, there's not a lot of time left in our day after you come back from work, and then you have other responsibilities to take care of. For example, if you're, you're living alone, and you have a lot of responsibility, you have to take care of the house and everything, and then,
Exactly.
you also have other things that you need to do, and then there's not much time left. uh, Even when you sit in class, you don't have much concentration. You don't really do your homework. You come back, you don't, you can't really take as much in as you normally would when you would be rested. So I knew it would not make sense to, go out of my way to, like, take out a lot of resources. I mean, there's endless numbers of books, endless number of vocabularies that we can have, but in the end, it doesn't really help, because you just end up hoarding those things, and you never end up using this. There's even a term for it in German, and it's hard, I'll be honest. So that's why, like I said, it was really important that if I can take out the time for it, I'll make sure that, I let it incorporate in the time that I give out for other things. That's why the talking to myself part, that's why, talking to my friends in German as much as possible.
It
That's
really
why.
helps.
Exactly. And that's also why I encourage all my friends, all my colleagues, the ones that I study with in classes, to, when they text me, when they talk to me, they should do it in German, so that, even the smallest things they help. And to everybody that's listening, that's also something I'll encourage. You try to read, you try to text in German, because if you know what you're saying, something as simple as if you're telling me that you're tired, you'll know how to say that in German, right? And if you practice it the first time, you'll have to look up a dictionary, the second time as well, but then the third time you'll probably remember a little bit about how to say that.
Exactly.
Something as simple as I'm tired, and then, these small things really help and add up.
Okay. So there are a lot of questions from our listeners regarding the grammar and vocabulary part, which is a fact that most of the students still faces difficulties in vocabulary and grammar. So how do you balance the grammar, vocabulary, and the conversational practices in your learning routine?
See, all of it is kind of connected. As you know, the grammar is something that we absolutely need to solidify, right? And if you know the basic rules of grammar, then you can use different kind of words, different kind of vocabularies, to make sure that your grammar gets solidified. um, I was very thankful that I had Mr. Pranav sir, who introduced us the concept of helping us make up our own sentences. It's something that he told me, that you don't solve a worksheet in a day-to-day life, right? I mean, you're in Germany, you're going to be standing in front of 10 people. You're not going to be telling, like, they're going to not going to say something to you, and then you're going to be like, give me a few minutes, and then I'll solve a worksheet in front of me, and then I'll say it, right? That's not how real life works. So he gave us the opportunity to translate sentences, or make up our own sentences and examples. Like, for example, if we study something as simple as dark compounds, right? And he told us to make those sentences ourselves of the dark compounds. So that helps us think, helps us make our imagination more active, and it also helps you think of more vocabulary, or at least look it up so that you can solidify your grammar at the same time do your vocabulary. And of course, everything requires practice, a lot of practice. So once you solidify that grammar part, then you're ready to move forward to the other things and also learn your vocabulary. And and when you think that you're ready, for example, if you think you're A2 grammar and vocabulary, I mean, vocabulary is still like give or take, because it's possible that you know a bit less. It's possible that you use C1 vocabulary in A2. And that's more than fine. That's something I did as well. And it was completely okay. But the grammar absolutely needs to be solidified so that when a person knows that, okay, this is something that I completely dominate, then I can move forward to the next level. Otherwise, it's just going to end up leading to confusion.
Here's a fun question. What is your favorite German word, phrase, or expression?
Okay, I have to think a bit about that one, because a lot of them are pretty interesting, pretty funny. One that I always kept telling myself, I made this up myself, it's not like a German phrase or anything. I tell this to myself, and every time I'm like stuck in a difficult situation, I always tell myself this particular thing. Meine Flammen fleckern, doch sie sterben nie. It means that my flames will flicker, but they will never die.
Ooh,
so
that's
it's
interesting.
kind of, yeah, it's kind of holistic. It sounds very, like kind of a bit too overwhelming, in the sense that, sometimes you find yourselves in these situations where, you think that, everything is going to, going down. And then you think that maybe everything is over, but then you always remember that, it's never the end. The only way to go is up. So I like to inspire myself through it. Another funny one that I found that most people, I'm sure, know is Ich glaube, mein Schwein pfeift. That's like, I think my pig whistled. I don't know. It's one of the first ones that I saw, and it just kind of stuck in my head because I don't know. It's just funny. Like, that's not something you normally hear in English. You don't hear somebody say, "Oh, my pig whistled" or something like that. It means that, when you see something that you absolutely don't believe, I can't believe it. Instead of saying something in English, we say, "I can't believe that this happened." We end up saying, "Ich glaube, mein Schwein pfeift." So,
all right. So, a student wants to know, how did you manage to clear C1 when you have not fully completed B2? Wasn't it too risky to think of taking a C1 exam directly?
Like I mentioned, I did not have any particular things that I used to do, like resources wise. So my resources were always like novels in German, or TV shows in German, or like, just talking to friends in German. And because these resources, they don't really have a set level, they're like established native German levels, right? So all these topics were to me already known. So the topics that normally a person learns in C1, so I have seen them more than enough times that I thought, okay, like this is something I know I already use. And as I'm continuing to do B2.2, I noticed that a lot of these topics, I know how to use them. For example, there's a topic we call passive Satz, in which we use a different form of passive, like we use a different form of sentence, which kind of gives the same sense as what we would want to say in passive. I already know how to use it. I already knew how to learn it because I've already seen it in a lot of sources. I just did not know the grammar rules to it and how it is used correctly, in the sense basically following the rules. So all these rules were already, all these topics were already known to me in its own art and visor, in its own form. So, and the same goes with vocabulary. Since I already had these resources I was using, my vocabulary was always high. The one thing that I realized that I had to work on is this nominal verbal still, and for as we called it, NP. So that is a challenge because that's the biggest jump from B2 to C1. Because B2 is something that's something we use, and if you are able to talk in B2, then if you dominate B2, then you'll be able to talk in day-to-day life. But when you do C1, that's where the difference jumps, because C1 is like completely either very schwach, like very professional. It's something you use in your contracts, in your it's very legal, right? It's something very, how do we say, gehoben, right? So that's where the difference lies. And that's something I had to work on. So when I booked the C1 exam, I knew that's one weakness that I have. So that's what I went towards. I noticed your face that there's a funny comment.
No, no, no. Just continue, please.
Sorry.
Continue, please. I'll be asking all the questions.
Okay, no, I'm done. That's all.
All right. Okay, so here's a question. Need to know what are the topics on higher note we need to know to learn or get the roadmap of learning German.
See, that's a big reason why we are a part of LP, because LP classes, they provide an extremely good roadmap and extremely good structure why and how we do things the way we do it. People often ask me, oh, can I just like not learn from YouTube or something? Do I really need to go out of my way to learn a language? Yes, sure, you can do that. But I've seen people struggle for years and they still don't know how to do the topics, how to do things. And joining a really good course, thankfully, I was very lucky enough to be with LP. And something like LP, it offers us a really good structure that we know what we're learning, how we're learning it is exactly at the right time. And for example, if you're learning from YouTube and you see some topic that's probably a C1 one, you will never understand it. You'll feel discouraged. But having people alongside you who are going through the same journey, having a good structure and having somebody who's supporting you by your side, I think that's the most important. And I think our teachers are there to support us with exactly that.
So as you said that you are in B2 with Pranav sir, and
Yes.
I know that you have paid C1. So will you be completing C1 from here, or because you have gave exam of C1, but you
Absolutely. See,
have no, no, please.
yes, absolutely. I intend to completing my C1, and if I do get the chance, I'll also do my C2.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I cleared the exam, that does not mean that I have the complete knowledge that I expect myself to have when I, for example, go out. And I'll always think that there's something that I need to do. And of course, there are a lot of things that always need to be learned. Even in B2.2, I'm learning things that I would normally not know. And even though I know these topics, as I mentioned, that I've seen them before, knowing how to exactly use them the right way is the key, and that's something I can only learn in classes. So the answer would be absolutely. I'll still be continuing C1.
So basically, what advice would you give to our listeners who are aspiring to start their journey or to give the Goethe exam?
What I've noticed is, a lot of people give German too much power, and then it overwhelms them. Like, you, in the end, it's just a language and it's a tool that we use. And to give it too much power means that you'll never be able to control it. So I think instead of making yourself letting it overwhelm you, you use it as a tool, you give it the respect that it deserves. One thing I always realized and knew was German had always it's had my respect for Dean. It always had my respect. And because I was able to learn it with the way that it wanted to be learned in the way that it needs to be expressed in, I was able to dominate it. And it's something that I would say that, it's not something to be scared of. And as long as you give in the time, as long as you give in the effort, as long as you don't get scared of learning things, because in the end, everybody has doubts. Somebody, you try a new sentence and then you see, okay, this doesn't work that way, because I've had a lot of friends who talk to me and then they like, they write me a sentence and then they think, okay, I tell them, okay, no, that's not how you write it. And then they write it again and it's the same thing. And then sometime they get it right. And then the next sentence they write is again wrong. And then they get so discouraged. But it's important to understand that's exactly the part of the journey. Until you get yourself wrong a million times, you won't get it right. And but once you get it right, you know exactly how it needs to be done. You're never going to get it wrong again. So
Exactly.
the most important thing is to keep at it. and
Mm-hmm.
to never feel discouraged by the language. I think all the other tips, all our teachers do a very good job of doing it, but the fact that people get discouraged even beyond that because they think, okay, teacher ko to aati hai, wo to bol sakta hai, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But as somebody, I mean, sure, I'm fluent enough, but I'm also not somebody who has learned the language since a very long time, and
Mm-hmm.
I can still say that I'm very good at the language in the sense that I still have a lot to learn. So, and there are still situations when that come up, like for example, if I'm watching a TV show, there'll still come one or two words that I'll see, okay, I've never seen before, or they don't make sense in a sentence. But then the part is to just look it up to see what it means, why are they saying it this way, you know, and just being curious. I think that's gonna help in a lot of ways.
All right. So some of our student wants to know the new pattern of C1 exam.
Okay. I think that for that we have really good EP classes. I was very lucky to have Miss Priyanka with me. So I was a bit short on time and I did not have the chance to do B2. I actually started B2 classes, but I realized since I'm short on time, I'll go with the C1 EP directly. And Miss Priyanka was extremely kind enough to accommodate me, even with my very special situation. And she helped me understand the new C1 pattern, which is exactly what the EP classes are for, so that you know exactly what's awaiting you. The new pattern, I think it's a bit easier in comparison, but it still requires, for example, if you're doing Lazen, it still requires a high level of understanding because the way they write sentences, it's extremely complicated, it's extremely intricate, and you need to be very comfortable with Enfau,
Hmm.
normal, verbal, still. And Huron is pretty much the same because you need to have a lot of concentration, and expression, I'd say, requires a bit more of a higher level of style. Like what we normally see in day-to-day life is, I agree with you, but in C1 you would probably say, I concur with the statement you're saying, or the statement you're saying is acceptable. So it just kind of changes the style, the way that you talk, and it needs to be at a very high level. But I would say the grundlage, like the basis is the same, but it's still gotten a bit easier in comparison. But not to the sense that you think that it's gonna make a difference. I still think you require just as much as hard work and effort. So
All right. So apart from the resources, what podcasts did you list to? What movies or TV shows did you watch from A2 to B1, from increasing level of understanding of it? Like
hmm,
you cannot watch Dark as a beginner.
yeah, that's
There's a
actually
question from our student.
yes.
I'm
That's
reading for
also
you.
hmm. That's also something every teacher, including Pranav sir, told me.
Hmm.
That's not something you're gonna understand. That's a bit too high level. And also, what he said was, when you don't understand something, you're gonna feel very overwhelmed. And he was completely right with that. I actually watched all these TV shows. Um, like for example, Dark you mentioned, right? That's something I watched in A2, but also with English subtitles. So I found this resource through which you can have English and German subtitles gleichzeitig at the same time. So when I used to, for example, come back home from work, I used to watch it in German, sure. But at the same time, sometimes you're just tired, you just want to relax, right? So there's always the English subtitles for that. So even if it doesn't matter if you're not like understanding every single word, at the very least, when you see those small things, like when you see it written in English and you also see it written in German, your mind kind of still makes a connection. So I wouldn't say that it's not something you can do. It's just the way you do it is a much more different. You just have to approach it in a more different way. And as of like TV shows that you can watch, at this point, I've watched all the TV shows on Netflix that are available in German that are like German, and now I'm kind of watching all the TV shows that were like that have this Deutsch synchro. I'm not sure of the English word, like they have subtitles and German audio. So even though they're made in English, they have this German translation, and that's what I'm trying to achieve right now. Basically, everything you find in German, I try to watch it.
All right. So, any suggestion about any novel or movies, something, or podcast?
I will be very honest. I did not listen to a lot of podcasts. I did Easy German. At the beginning, I listened to a lot of Easy German podcasts. I think they're available on Apple Podcasts. That's what I used to listen it on. But I'm sure they're also available on Spotify and YouTube. Beyond that, I didn't really listen to a lot of podcasts. I did watch a lot of movies. Basically, everything that's available on Netflix. I think my very first one was Issy and Aussie. It's a very romantic, and I think that's the only good romantic movie that I can find in Germany, in German, because for some reasons German don't really enjoy romance. I don't know, at least not in TV shows. So there's a lot of Netflix TV shows. If you just go on the tab and you go under Deutsch or German, then it will list all the TV shows that are originally German, and then that's something you can use to guide yourself forward. From books, I can't really list a lot of books offhand because I didn't read a lot. There's also one of the people I talked to recently. They also mentioned that they wanted some romance books. So one I remember that I recommended is Wenn wir uns verlieren. And another author, thanks to my teacher, he enjoys Franz Kafka. And I've also made myself known with this particular author. And he has a really high level of German, but that's something that people can also use if they think their level is high enough or they need a challenge, or just absolutely just new words that they think would sound nice.
All right. So there are a lot of questions regarding the hearing part, which actually student faces trouble in. So what do you want to say regarding the hearings?
Huron is, yeah, absolutely very difficult, because the challenge that we as Indians right now face, since we're studying German in India, right? It's not something that we can hear in our daily life. So it's also a challenge that I faced. I mean, I'm at work, I'm talking in Hindi or English the entire time, and then it's not a opportunity that I have to be able to like do Huron, accustom myself to the German sounds, the way they speak. And even in classes, because the topics need to be explained in English, that mode of instruction in the beginning like levels is also English, because the teachers definitely put in the effort, but it gets really hard. And it's also important that first most the topic is, the students understand the topic. So that's not also not something that can be achieved in books classes, right? I mean, it's not something that you can practice. So exactly, like facing this challenge, I did the exact same as I mentioned before, basically incorporating Huron in my life. I listened to a lot of YouTube videos, a lot of things that I could listen to German. Basically, even something as small as like if I wanted to buy a new phone, right? So I just look up the same iPhone review that I would normally look it up. I would look it up in German, and just having something as small as that, having it play in my ear the entire time. At least this way my brain can get used to how German is spoken. And you know as long as you keep practicing that, if you get used to how the German language is and how it's spoken, then it's going to help a lot. And of course, in the end, it's important that you talk to your friends, you talk to your people that are studying German. You also talk to them in German, so that you can yourself be able to say exactly those sentences that you hear, and also make up the same kind of sentences that you would normally say in English, instead this time in German.
So, how do you think like learning German has influenced your perspective or worldwide? How do you think?
It did open up a really good horizon for me, because it introduced a culture to me that was normally not known to me before. So Europe is extremely distinct. I think a lot of us already know American culture, even though we have not been to America. A lot of us has not been to America, but with so much media that's influenced by the USA, we are already pretty much known with the culture. We know us pretty well with the culture. But Europe is quite distinct because, you know, since because of the language, it's so closed off. To understand, to be able to see what Germans do, why they are the way they are, why they think the way they think, and why they do things the way they do.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, we have a lot of memes about it, we make jokes about it, but really to really understand it, you know, that's where the language comes in play. And as somebody who's moving to Germany, being able to know and understand these things are extremely helpful, and it absolutely opened up a new horizon for me. And I'm extremely happy that I took this decision, and it's only going to get better.
All right. Can you share any memorable experience or achievement throughout your journey?
Such as like clearing my C1 exam, you mean?
That is it, but any memorable apart from this?
Um, I would say I remember the hardest part when I joined my B1 classes, right? So I remember my A2 classes kind of ended, were almost ending, but then, you know, I was also doing my A2 and B1 grammar classes that were common on Aurum classes, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember Mr. Pranav sir, he's the one who took the classes, the common ones, just like Anuj sir takes them. And he noticed that I was continuously asking him questions in German, even though I was an A2 level. And it's his words, not mine. He noticed that, you know, I he could also offer me what, you know, I think that I could achieve, in the sense that he thought that somebody who's putting in all this effort in A2, he could do quite a bit more, and he also wanted to add to that. And I asked him if I could be a part of his classes, and he said yes, even though the classes started 2 months prior. So that was a big challenge for me, because catching up with 2 months worth classes and then at the same time doing the classes that were going on live, that was a big, huge challenge. And honestly, a lot of people criticized me for it. But I think my biggest achievement was when I cleared these 2 levels of like 2 months of classes, and then also like, you know, doing the same time the live classes. When I finished those, honestly, that was such a beautiful achievement for me. And I just feel really happy that, you know, I remember I was like absolutely ecstatic that, you know, I did this, and also I have the knowledge that I wanted to get from these classes.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond the learning journey, I think it was quite interesting because, you know, there were a lot of times where I was just like working, I was extremely busy, and at the same time, you know, I have my classes playing in the ear at it's like 11 p.m. at night, and you know, I'm talking to a patient, I'm giving him advice, I'm checking up on him before they go to sleep, and I have this class playing on in my ear. He's teaching us passive or something, and you know, it was just a really interesting memory because I always keep remembering these kind of things that, you know, even though it was hard, but if somebody asks me what's passive and all that, I'll always remember that one night where I was just like taking care of this 55-year-old lady who was just like having who just had a surgery, and then she was not able to, you know, deal with everything that was going on with her. And at the same time, I was learning passive, you know, just how to deteriorate öffnen und sowas. And I don't know, it just kind of stuck with me.
Hmm.
There was another time when I was kind of in the operating theater, and I was still having to I had to do a class, and I was learning these dark compounds, and I had a baby that just got delivered, and then, you know, we were taking care of the baby who just, you know, was born and everything, and then, you know,
Mm.
and then at the same time I'm hearing dark compounds playing in my hair. So these are just a couple memories that I think I'll always remember, and they'll always stay a
Mm.
part of me through the
Mm.
journey. Even though I've reached at this point, I think that's exactly what, you know,
Mm.
that contributes to what made me to reach where I reach now.
All right. Anything else you want to tell our listeners?
Just that you don't ever give up, no matter how hard the language is. And as much that you cry, I've had friends who've literally cried because they want to give up on the language because it's too hard and everything. In the end, it's really just a language. You can't give them the power that you think that it deserves. You use it, you understand it, you see why things are the way they are. You know, you don't say that why is it not in English, so, and it's not like that in English, why is it not like that? And then in the end I say, it's German is its own language. Comparing it to English makes no sense, and translating it word to word from English also makes zero sense, because the words are made in a certain way, and that's a big mistake that people make. They translate everything from English, and it does not work. You cannot say, something that's made in English in a certain way, it does not follow the same structure in German. And doing that, it's just gonna lead to more problems, and it's just gonna lead to more confusion, more. Then it gets demotivating, and then you want to give up the language. So it's like a Teufelskreis. So to never give up and to never let yourself get confused by the English language, I think that's the key. The best way to learn German is to do it in German. And learning how to build a sentence, how to say something exactly in German and not translating from English, I think that's the key, and that's something that people need to remember. All right. Thank you so much for sharing your inspiring story, Dr. Ayush, with us today, and your valuable insights. It was an honor for me, and I'm glad I could be a part of this journey here. All right. And I want to thank LP and all the teachers and all the support that you and everybody has of your team has offered me. And without that, I wouldn't be here where I am. All right. So we're going to end this conversation here, this webinar here. Anything our listeners want to ask, they can feel free to connect any of our helpline team. And surely we're going to post this video to YouTube as well.